Am I the asshole for not spending this Christmas in the hospital with my daughter? My 39F daughter, 16F, has had a sensitive stomach ever since she was a kid. There are certain foods that will upset her stomach to the point where she's unable to stop throwing up. We've seen countless doctors, but so far nobody's been able to give us a clear answer. The only advice we keep getting is to identify all trigger foods and cut them from her diet. We have a pretty good idea of what those foods are: soda and other carbonated drinks, chips, Cheetos, and other similar processed snacks, anything oily or fried, and most sweets. Unfortunately, this is exactly the kind of stuff my daughter loves to eat the most. And as horrible as she feels after she has them, she still refuses to cut them out of her diet, which in turn led to her spending a lot of time in the hospital during the past few years. When she was little, it was easier to keep all these foods away from her because I simply wouldn't buy them. But now that she's older, I can't always be there to check what she eats. She eats the greasy pizza at her school's cafeteria, she trades her lunch with her classmates, she goes out with her friends and stops to eat at KFC, and so on. And it always ends with her in the crying and shaking because she can't stop throwing up. This was the case on this Christmas Eve as well, when our whole family gathered at our place. And of course, among the many dishes at our Christmas table were some of her main trigger foods, like chips, soda, chocolate, and sweets. Now mind you, these were far from the only foods available to her. We also had a variety of home-cooked, traditional dishes on the table, with ingredients that don't upset her stomach, like vegetables, meat, dairy, etc. All of them delicious and well seasoned. My daughter herself says she really likes most of these dishes. Despite this, my daughter chose to eat nothing but her trigger foods. I reminded her that they'd make her feel awful, but she said she didn't care, because Christmas is only once a year and she just wants to live a little. Well, this ended with her violently throwing up in the a few hours later. She had to be hospitalized for a few days and only just got out of the hospital a few hours ago. And unlike all the previous times when something like this happened, this time I chose to spend my Christmas relaxing at home with the rest of our family, and not in the hospital by my daughter's side. I kept in touch with her through calls and texts, and told her that if she needed anything I'd ask a family member to bring it to her, but I made it clear that I would not be visiting her during her stay. And well, my daughter didn't take this too well. She cried every time we talked on the phone, begged me to come over, told me how horrible I was for abandoning her there all alone, and so on. Most of our family didn't take my side in this either, and during the past few days I got called everything from a little extreme to downright cruel and heartless. Ate the asshole, Reddit? Not sure if I'm gonna be in the minority or get downvoted, oh well. But I'm going with not the asshole. She's 16 and for sure smart enough and mature enough to know better. As the cliché the saying is, and as much as it's overused on Reddit. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. This isn't a case of a 7-year-old that doesn't really know any better. This is a person that will legally be an adult in less than 2 years. She knows full well what she can and cannot eat, and she made a personal choice to eat things she shouldn't. While it may seem cruel and heartless, maybe you leaving her there by herself, obviously, she's not, since there was plenty of staff there with her, will be the wake-up call she needs to stop eating the shit that makes her get admitted into the hospital. Am I the asshole for returning my husband's Christmas present? This happened before Christmas, but there is still tension in the house and I just need advice. I 30F have been with my husband 31M for 3 years. We both have children to previous relationship, mine 8F and his 6M. My husband started taking away presents from the Christmas tree for the children that he bought them, when the kids misbehave. I didn't really get a say in it since he was the one that bought the presents for the kids. My daughter has been asking me for months to get her a Switch, so I decided to save a bit and buy her one for Christmas. It was sitting under the tree, then suddenly on Christmas Eve I noticed it was gone. I asked my daughter if she touched it and she said she didn't, so I decided to turn to my husband, and he said that she swore at him while he was trying to get her ready for bed the night before, so he decided to punish her and take away the present and return it to the store. I started seeing red, and demanded he hands me the money back since I was the one that bought that present. He refused, so I grabbed his present that I bought him, a brand new PS5 that he knew he was getting, and returned it, got my money back and bought my daughter her Switch back. This started a big argument with my husband and I, and with him calling me childish for doing that. He got his family involved and they spammed my phone telling me to get his present back. But I refused. He is still not talking to me, so am I the asshole? Not the asshole. He's acting unilaterally and returning your present, and then kept the money? WTF. That's bad co-parenting but also literally stealing. Yikes about this guy. Please don't live in denial about who he is. In ta. Why are you with this man who is stealing from kids to punish them? Not the asshole. But I think you should give him an even better Christmas present, a divorce. You guys do not belong in relationships. What? No way. Not the asshole. He returned the gift and kept your money? Unfortunately, you have more problems than the gift problem, here. Also, why do grown people in Reddit are always involving family and marriage issues? This is so weird. Sorry grammar, English is my second language. Am I the asshole for not doing the activity my husband picked on vacation even though he did the one I wanted? My husband and I recently went on a long overdue vacation to a tropical island. We stayed at an all-inclusive resort but we also wanted to get out and actually explore the island as well. So we decided that each of us could pick an activity to do that would get us off the resort for a day. I picked a hike that would bring us up into the mountainous interior of the island and through some rainforests. My husband is not a big hiker, but he agreed to do it with me. My husband narrowed his choices down to 2 options, a catamaran trip to go snorkeling and dune buggy riding. I get horrible motion sickness. We had some mild turbulence on our flight to the island and even with the Dramamine I took before we took off, I still got nauseous and lightheaded. I told my husband that both of the ideas he picked are things that I know for a fact would make me motion sick. He told me that it probably wouldn't be that bad but I told him that I know my body and I know without a doubt that both of those activities would make me sick. I asked him if there were any other activities that he was interested in, but he said those 2 were the only ones that piqued his interest. He eventually agreed to go on the hike trip first and then we can figure out the activity that he wants to do. While on our hike we started talking with another couple that was also staying at our resort. They had been there a couple of times before and my husband asked if they had done either of the activities that he wanted to do. They had done both and said that both were a lot of fun. But the wife did say that the catamaran trip was pretty rough at times and a couple of people on their trip got seasick. She also said that the dune buggy was fun because you get to drive it yourself, but it's mostly on dirt tracks that can get pretty bumpy. From the way she described it, I knew that if I did either of those things, I would get sick. When we got back from the hike, I told my husband that I don't want to do either of the activities he wants to do and asked again if he can please pick something else for us to do. He said those were the only 2 things he liked, and if I don't want to do them, we won't because he doesn't want to go alone. I knew he was upset because he was really excited talking about both the things he wanted to do and after I told him I wouldn't do them, his demeanor definitely changed. I wouldn't say he was sulking, but he was definitely less animated and not his usual fun self. He pretty much spent the rest of our trip just sitting around the pool doing nothing. I tried to get him to do things with me, like get a massage, but he told me to go do that myself. When he didn't change his attitude I finally asked him what was up and he told me that he went outside of his comfort zone to go on a hike with me, but I wouldn't do the same for him. I told him that hiking doesn't make him sick so that's a big difference but he told me I could have at least tried one of them. You are the asshole. You could have tried the dune buggy with him and stopped if it was a problem, at which time he might have been happy continuing on his own, or driven your own behind him and gone slower. You didn't even try. You are the asshole. What is the point of making a deal when you refuse his first 2 picks? You can take Dramamine and ginger, etc. that helps with motion sickness. I can get why you wouldn't go on a catamaran, but a buggy ride where you are completely in control of the movement of the vehicle? You have a great husband for putting up with you, I'll tell you that. Not the asshole. I think a lot of the YTA votes are from people who don't suffer from motion sickness. I get it playing some games, and I feel miserable for hours. And both activities sound like once you start, you can't just stop. I think your husband was an asshole for not just doing one activity by himself and then selecting something both of you can do. Am I the asshole for telling my husband he is a bad dad to one of our kids? Me, F36, and my husband Will, M35, have 3 kids: Adam, M9, Maddie, F7, and Megan, F6. Will has always been into video games, Star Wars and anime etc. It's never been my cup of tea but I think it's healthy that we have separate hobbies and interests and we have other stuff in common. When we had Adam, Will was super excited to share his interests with him and bought him Star Wars-themed baby grows and toys etc. For Adam's first Halloween, Will dressed him up as Darth Vader and it was super cute. It was the same for the girls. I did tell Will that I had no issue with this while the kids were small, but we had to let them develop their own interests. As it turns out, both Adam and Maddie love playing computer games with their dad and have similar interests, so there have been no issues. The problem now is that as Megan is getting older, she is showing more interest in princesses and Barbies etc. and finds her dad and siblings' interests boring. Will seems to have an issue with this and keeps trying to encourage Megan more towards his interests. At Halloween he seemed annoyed that Megan wanted to dress as Elsa, as he always took pride in Maddie not dressing up as a princess like lots of her classmates. This Christmas it has come to a head as Will spent all of Boxing Day playing the Switch with Adam and Maddie and helping them build Lego while leaving Megan out. Will has offered Megan to play with them, but she wants to play with her new toys and the games that she likes. I played with Megan most of the day, but she asked if she could play her new Barbie game on the Switch for a while with her dad. I told them all to let her have a turn and play the Barbie game with Megan. Adam and Maddie were actually fine and seemed to have fun, but Will kept making fun of the game and telling Megan that other games like Mario Kart were far more fun. I could see Megan losing confidence in wanting to play the game and she started to say she didn't want to play anymore, so I pulled Will aside and told him off and said that while he was a great dad to Adam and Maddie, he was being a bad dad to Megan by ignoring her interests. Will was really hurt by being called a bad dad and has been quiet ever since. The kids are now starting to notice that their dad is upset. I'm now wondering if I was too harsh, as he is generally a good dad and I do know that he loves Megan as much as he loves Adam and Maddie. Edit. Thank you all for your comments. It's been really helpful to read through them all, although some were hard to read. Will saw this post, which I have to admit to myself I knew was a possibility as I used real names. We are going to have a long talk after the kids are in bed this evening, but he has apologized to Megan and surprised her with tickets for the Frozen musical in the West End, and they are currently making plans for a daddy-daughter day out to London to have fun and see the show. I'm hoping this was the kick up the ass he needed, as I do genuinely believe he is a good dad and a good man. Not the asshole. I told them all to let her have a turn and play the Barbie game with Megan. Adam and Maddie were actually fine and seemed to have fun, but Will kept making fun of the game and telling Megan that other games like Mario Kart were far more fun. This is pretty gross. Will doesn't sound like much a dad at all. He just sounds like a guy who likes having fun with miniature versions of himself. Not the asshole he is being a bad dad to Megan. He is an adult and mocking her interest and not respecting the fact she is her own person. You did exactly what needed to be done. No idea if you were too hard on Will or not. But don't be that woman who feels like she has to make her husband feel better because he feels bad about messing up. If he messed up, and it sounds like he did, it's okay for him to feel bad until he apologizes and tries to fix it. You don't have to fix this for him.